am Rohia, the marketing manager for EngageList India team, and this is my masterclass on women in leadership roles in today's workplace. So before we get started, just let me walk you through what you'll learn here today in this masterclass and what your key takeaways will be. So this is going to be an interactive masterclass where you'll get a chance to ask questions at the end of the session, and I will try to answer them with my experience in the industry. So we are going to be discussing about the current state of female labor force participation in the country. We will also be discussing about the possible reasons for women not being able to reach leadership positions at their workplace, and the need for female leadership in businesses today, and how women can help themselves and each other to overcome this problem, and what businesses can do to be more inclusive of women in C-suite. Okay, so let's get started. Okay. So how many of you have recently come across this news about how these women-led nations have best responses to coronavirus? So this is like very commonly forwarded WhatsApp these days. So what was your first thought when you saw this? For me, I went ahead and did a little more research into how they so effectively prevented the spread of the virus that has put the entire globe to panic. So leaders from these countries showed traits like decisiveness, empathy, emotional intelligence, and communicated the seriousness of this virus to the officials and common population of their countries way earlier than other countries did. They introduced new ways to prevent the spread of virus, showed the world how effective leadership can help us during the times of crisis. And among the first and fastest responses was from Taiwan. So back in January, at the first sign of new illness, they introduced 124 measures to block the spread without having to resort to lockdowns. So after I read about all of this, I felt really proud of these women here, and I shared this news with my family, with my close friends, and we all agreed that women are really amazing leaders and they can do wonders if they were put in positions with power and influence. Wish it was that easier in the world outside to accept us that way, right? So the truth here is that the higher up you go in the corporate ladder, the fewer women you'll find in positions of power and influence. So coming to the numbers in our country, did you know that India's female labor force participation is the lowest in South Asia? That's right. It was 30.3% in 1990 and 42.7% in 2004. And now the recent data collected in 2019 shows that it has surprisingly dropped to just 20.5%. While the same data for men stands at 76.08%, which is still 4 times higher than that of women. So do you know what this means? It means that 4 out of 5 women aren't working in our country, despite closing the education gap. It means women are getting educated. Women are getting their undergrad, they're getting their graduation, they are doing their philosophy degrees, they're getting their PhDs. But that number isn't transforming the same way to the workforce. So, and out of this mere number of 20.5% of women who constitute India's workforce, only 12% of both seats in the whole country are filled by them. And with the pandemic affecting the workforce and employability, women lost more jobs than men due to COVID. That means right now we aren't even at 20.5. So we often talk about this glass ceiling that prevents women from reaching senior leadership positions in their careers. But do we even consider this as a real problem? Because when you look at your workplace, everything seems fine, right? Like we have our goals, we have our targets to achieve, we are collaborating, we're delivering. What's the problem here? One major problem is that women tend to drop out before reaching their leadership potential. And why is this happening? Well, for starters, women have no role models. And unfortunately, we live in a society where women unconsciously abide by the rules of age demographics. Okay, that's complex. Let me tell you what that means. So, okay, even though women want to work and climb up the corporate ladder, the conditioning that we have in our brains, our mind models, the conditioning that we have to get married in our 20s or 30s and have kids by 40, or I have actually relaxed the number here. This limits the possibilities that women can explore in the corporate. Again, I am not against all these things at all. It is important to have a life out of work. That's a different discussion altogether. But let me tell you what happens when a woman starts thinking about having a child or getting engaged or getting married. So suddenly, people at your workplace or like people around you decide that you aren't up for leadership responsibilities, or that you are more keen on building your family, and that you won't have time to dedicate to your work, or you can't balance both work and family at the same time, etc. And not just that, we women tend to be, prepared way ahead of something. So the moment you start thinking of a major change in your personal life, you start looking for ways to accommodate this change in your life. So you start prioritizing, and a lot of changes happen right from the moment you decide it. And suddenly, you start leaning back in your career. You start going back into shadows. You aren't speaking your mind, and you might even end up believing what people around you are saying, and you aren't looking for that promotion that you worked so hard for, and eventually it gets to you. All this sounds so scary, doesn't it? But you know what happens when a man decides to make a major change in his life? They get a pay raise. They are promoted because now they're ready to take more responsibilities, right? He's a family man. He needs more allowance. He needs to provide for his family, etc. That's what happens. So, can you see the problem here? So, how there's a deep rooted unconscious bias in our own workplace among people who are modern, even among us millennials, and even among women. So, that's one thing. And I mean, while this is one major problem why women tend to leave the workforce, or, not put themselves out for leadership opportunities, another problem is that we women do not negotiate. This happens, this happens majorly because they do not give enough credit for themselves. Um, every conversation, remember this, every conversation you have in your life is a negotiation. While women are really good negotiators when they do it on behalf of someone else, studies say that they find it really hard to do it for themselves. And what's the reason behind this? Let me tell you. When a man accomplishes something and you ask him how he did it, like the secret to his success, you will not listen to any other reason or explanation but that he is really good at his job, how dedicated he is. He'll boast about how self made he is. And he might also end up giving you career advice. But when you ask a woman what her secret to success is, she'll give credit to everyone who supported her and all that. She'll give credit to everyone else but herself. So this is a very bad habit we have, that we do not talk much about our accomplishments, even if they're huge. So this is one thing we need to learn from our male counterparts, how to do it skillfully. So why are we so uncomfortable talking about our accomplishments? So one reason is that while our male leaders in the corporate world are liked for their traits like, being strong, being decisive, being assertive, and competent, women are penalized for behaving the same way. Because for some complicated reason, women leaders are expected to be kind, nurturing, helpful, supportive, and nothing more than that. That's right. So, I know that all these qualities are still very important for a leader, but these stereotypical traits, they limit women from speaking for themselves. They limit women from feeling that, they deserve what they're asking for. They make us doubt our own abilities and judgment. As a result, women end up not acknowledging their own successes or negotiate for that leadership position they deserve. Next on the list is subtle sexism and unconscious bias. So, sexism at workplace is quite subtle today. So, so this is quite common. How many of you have had an idea ignored in a meeting only to be repeated by a male colleague 5 minutes later to interest and applause? That's pretty common these days, and nobody even talks about it. And one of the major reasons why women don't feel comfortable raising their hands or asking for what they want is this. I think actually it starts way early, like possibly in school. So, how many of you here have seen Harry Potter? I mean, the first part, Harry Potter, Sorcerer's Stone, any part. So, there is this Hermione Granger. She's my favorite character. So this kid, she did her reading. She kept raising her hand in the classroom despite being labeled annoying and a know-it-all. She even used time turner to go back in time to attend classes. I mean, she's brilliant, right? She's amazing. Yeah, there's a very commonly ignored fact that if not for Hermione, Harry Potter would be dead in the first book. So, like, really used to wish that I was more like Hermione and ignore what everyone thought and keep raising my hand. But it's not that easy for us women because we are expected to be nurturing and we cannot overshadow the team by being the know-it-all person there, right? So, how exactly do we deal with this unconscious bias and sexism? Well, for starters, speak up. Speak up and never stop asking questions. So we women have this tendency to worry about like how we are going to be perceived and if we are going to be likable or not. And like I said, the same traits that men are liked for, male leaders are liked for, women get penalized for. So if you're going to be thinking about how you're going to be perceived in the world out there and if you're going to be likable or not, you are not going to make the leader that you are not going to reach that potential that you have as a leader. So only worry about the unique contributions that you are going to bring to this table, right? Okay. So the next section of our masterclass is this is where we discuss why we need female leadership at all. Like, what is all this buzz about? Like, why are we talking about having women leaders at workplace today? So, before we get into the importance of ramping up women's leadership, let's just understand an ideal leader. So, is there a preset definition for this? Like an ideal leader? Of course not. Leadership can mean different things for different people, and it varies from team to team depending on the situational needs, right? This very need for different styles of leadership is the reason why we need more women in the C-suite. So women have few traits which are usually labeled feminine, but they can be really helpful to be a successful leader. For example, have you come across this term called emotional intelligence? So let me just tell you what it means. So emotional intelligence, it refers to the leadership traits like communication, negotiation, self-motivation, the ability to inspire, problem solving, critical thinking, multitasking, all of this. So women in general, they are excellent trust builders, right? And they possess soft skills and negotiation skills that can really help businesses benefit. And did I mention in the beginning of this class that women are really good negotiators when they're not doing it for themselves? Now that is both a problem and a solution. Like we can use this to our advantage. When you have women in C-suite, they're not really negotiating for themselves, they're negotiating on behalf of someone else. In fact, according to this study by Harvard Business Review, women in the United States Senate are better at working with people of different viewpoints and opinions to get things done than their male counterparts. Do you know what this means? Like women can work with people with completely different opinions and still get things done. So that's a very important leadership skill. So in businesses, female leaders can achieve agreements, make deals where men might fall short, But it is very important that they are at this table where decisions are made. And they have to be given positions of leadership and authority. And coming to the next part, yeah, we women are multitasking geniuses. Like, who needs explanation about this, right? When I was going, when I was doing my research recently about this, I came across this fun fact in a TED talk. So it says that if a woman and a man work full time and have a child, the woman does twice the amount of housework that the man does, and three times the amount of childcare that the man does. So technically, she's got the capacity to handle three jobs and be really amazing at all of them. And he's got one job. Doesn't mean that you have to do it all that way. That's pretty unfair, but this is just an example of how good women can be at multitasking, right? So women have the ability to decisively and quickly respond to different tasks and problems at the same time. We are born for it, right? And that is a critical component to successful leadership. And next comes crisis management and critical thinking. Like I said in the beginning of this class, women leaders are amazing when it comes to crisis management. A lot has been written about how women leaders are excelling during a crisis. We even have live examples now. So, critical thinking to solve problems means asking vital questions around a problem, gathering and assessing relevant information, and coming to a well-reasoned conclusion. So, successful women leaders think open-mindedly about their assumptions and the possible consequences. This is one thing women are really good at. They're honest. They're honest about their possibilities, right? So, about the women-led nations and all that, these women have been doing their roles for a while now. And I'm sure they haven't suddenly changed their leadership approach. So why are they now getting more attention, right? Maybe it's less about their gender and more about the leadership traits that they're displaying, which may be, more highly valued in a crisis management situation like this. One of the things that all of us require from our leaders is decisiveness and honesty. So it is important that you give direction, but also it is very important that you be clear. And it is also important as a leader to keep things under review. Be honest about decisions being made in real time, and acknowledging that like we might not get everything right at the first time. Women are really good at that. Women know what they're getting themselves into. So the best leaders strike the right balance between decisiveness and agility. This is what female world leaders are doing right now. They're actively leading, from the front and directly talking to their audience and allowing them to ask questions. They are also offering like empathy and care needed in health crisis. So these are probably the traits that aren't valued enough during business as usual. But I think these are very important if you are looking for results, right? And last but not least, did you know that if the barriers to women's workforce participation were removed, India could gain a lot? According to this study by McKinsey in 2018, increasing women's labor force participation by 10% could add $770 billion US dollars to India's GDP by 2025. That's huge, right? I don't even know how many zeros are in it, right? Yeah, so that's about like why it is important to have leaders. Why it is important to have female leaders. And all this seems really interesting and motivating at a point. But how do we deal with the real problem here? Like, what are the most obvious hurdles that women are facing at workplaces when it comes to exploring leadership opportunities, and how can they overcome this? So let me, okay, you can see my screen. All right. So lack of self-confidence. All right. So recently, in past few years, I have had this privilege to get in touch with so many fabulous ladies who have done so well for themselves, who have done, considerable amount of work in their fields and, made a difference in people's lives. But it happens very rarely that they attribute their successes to themselves. So recently, I spoke at this panel with an audience full of aspiring women at various levels of their careers. And I had an opportunity to interact with a couple of them personally, where I learned that these women who have actually been amazing in their journeys are surprisingly dealing with lack of self confidence in their careers. So, why is it so important to be confident in your own abilities? I mean, confident of your own abilities? Because confidence is something that turns our thoughts into actions. And without confidence, we tend to hold ourselves back. Many of us deal with this problem. This is pretty common. I mean, I do. So there is always this bully version of me sitting in my head and telling me that I am good for nothing. And it makes me doubt each and every move I make. And I understand that this isn't going away overnight. So I try to battle it gradually by getting in touch with my inner self that actually believes in me and motivates me. So each time there is a voice that tells you that you cannot do something, also try to listen to that tiny voice in the corner that says you can. Coach your inner critic and mute it. So practice saying out loud that you are enough and you are excellent at your work. Keep doing this. I mean, seriously, lady, stop second guessing yourself because there's a whole world out there who are doing that for you already. You can at least check that off your list, right? And the next on the list is ambivalence. Okay, so this is a very common problem that we come across. If you, as a woman leader, cannot answer this question of what you want in your life, what you want in your professional life or in your career, how is anything you do going to help you even get there? Like, if you don't know your destination, how are you going to start the journey, right? So it will be pretty directionless. So, according to a research, a lot of women do not define what they want to do next. So, decide what your career is and be specific, be focused. So, understand what you want from all the angles. If you want to be a leader, you need technical and business acumen to be successful in a role, right? So, read to understand more about the position than just what your job requires. Also, it is very important to meet and exceed all of the expectations in your role. So make your aspirations known, ask for feedback, or be open to feedback, and do something with that feedback. Work on getting that skills that you need to achieve that position, right? So it is very important for us women to take ownership of our own life and define where we see ourselves and work towards getting there. So, next part is branding. So, like I said before, we women are pretty uncomfortable talking about ourselves. Like I mentioned earlier, we are pretty humble, and that is kind of damaging our branding and presence, ladies. So, I can't stress this enough. It is important for you to understand and communicate what you bring to the table. Talk about your unique value proposition. Talk more about your accomplishments. Just do it. Even if it annoys everybody in the room, keep doing it. And the next one. So this thing is pretty common, but like many of us don't recognize this. So overcompensating. So as women, we feel the need to prove ourselves, prove our value to the organization. So this could be coming from a place of feeling a sense of control over something, but we tend to work really hard to prove our value. We tend to take on more and more responsibilities. We overcompensate just to show everyone that we are adding value to the organization. I mean, we overrow the boat. We like take more responsibilities. We're like, okay, I'll do all of it. And we just want to show in the end that like we are worthy of the advancement. We are worthy of the promotion. But let me tell you one thing. It is exhausting. So stop thinking that you have to do it all by yourself because you are going to be burnt out soon. And at a point like in your life, you will reach this position where you do not have it in you. You just want to like stop being a leader. So when the time is right, opt out and ask others to come along and share the responsibilities. Don't do it all. Learn how and when to say no and learn to delegate. Enjoy what you're doing and make sure you're having fun. So the moment you overcompensate, overrow the boat, you forget having fun with your work, right? And don't be afraid to bring new ideas forward. Be respectful of people and ask them to share responsibilities. So a lot of us, we do not, I mean, we are taught from a very young time that like, if you do hard work, you get success. But it is important that it's not just hard work. You have to work smartly. So don't overcompensate, don't burn out yourself, share the responsibilities, ask people to help. And again, when I say ask for help, again, women are really uncomfortable to ask for something they need. So this could be like, one reason could be fear of rejection or fear of being labeled bossy or selfish. Stop assuming the worst case scenarios in your brain even before you realize the need. So these can be anything like salary negotiations, leadership negotiations, promotions. Just get out there and ask them. There's no shame in knowing what you deserve and asking for it. What could happen? What is the worst thing that could happen? They would say no. You're anyway managing, right? Just ask. And the next one, uh, so there is this thing called mentors and sponsors. So it is important for any leader to have a mentor or sponsor today. So let me tell you what this is. So mentors are someone who believe in you and guide you in a way that you learn as you go. And a sponsor is someone who champions you, who is, willing to give you a recommendation if needed, or who is willing to ask for a promotion for you. So the problem today is that we women are over mentored and under sponsored, which is why we don't get many opportunities, right? So coming to the next aspect related to this is networking. So we women tend to assume that this is optional. But if you really want to be a leader, you seriously have to focus on building your network. And you have to strategically start building relationships and sponsorships. It is very important for you to build allies, step out, connect, and collaborate. Because in new roles, you need to learn new skills and find out what you don't know and learn. So if you are not moving ahead or if you're feeling stuck or confused about your situation, get help. Again, get help. It's not all on you. Don't put all the responsibility on yourself to advance in your career or succeed in a new role. Ask for help. Get mentors, like communicate with them, collaborate with them. Get a sponsor, get a mentor, right? Okay. So, oh, give me 1 second, ladies. I'll just have some water. Okay, sorry. So, coming to what businesses can do to promote female leadership in their organizations. Let me tell you, it isn't easy at all because we have been conditioned to function in a certain way from centuries, and you cannot bring change overnight. So while women can help each other climb the corporate ladder of success, it is very important for the organizations to step in and make it less difficult for them to reach the positions of power and influence. There are many awareness programs and training programs that facilitate this, but today we are not going to talk about those. Today, I'll just talk surface level on what you can do as a business owner or a business leader to make your workplace more inclusive of women leaders, because we can't cover all of it in a 1 hour masterclass. So okay, bringing in the change. One of the most vital and basic steps that you can take is to reassess and revamp your organizational policies and procedures. So go back today, check if you're, bring out your organization policies and procedures and see if they are, you know, in such a way that it increases gender diversity, or are they promoting gender diversity or retaining female leadership in your organization. If they're not, sit with your HR team, sit with people who are interested in this, and bring change, baby steps. So you don't have to bring major change overnight. I mean, you can begin with adding few aspects like flexible work timing, modified work schedules, competitive maternity leave policy, enforcing equal pay. I mean, all this can be a good start, right? And the next aspect, being transparent and being fair. Yeah, it is very important to be transparent in order to build a strong company culture. So this helps women how? Because I mean, being transparent, I mean, transparency prevents any kind of possible bias that's happening against women, and it creates a sense of accountability and trust. So implementing transparency in an organization can be challenging, but it can be done effectively by utilizing, like, few add-ons from other tools like real-time feedback from managers and peers, etc. So I'll tell you what we do at our office. At Engagely, we have this culture that promotes honest dialogue about like ongoing issues that directly affect the company and its employees. So let me tell you, this really works. And when coming to being fair, make sure you compensate your women leaders fairly. It is important that organizations realize the gender pay gap and put continuous efforts to fill in that gap. So the next part is respecting the leadership style. So, like I said, the leadership style of women is a little different from the traditional leadership. So women have this ability to bring new color to leadership with their unique traits and abilities like emotional intelligence, soft skills, etc. So it is important for organizations to acknowledge that, recognize that, and respect their style of leadership as well. So it so happens that men are assumed to be competent until proven otherwise, but women have to keep proving themselves at every step they take. That's very insulting, by the way. So don't be that company. Don't put them in a position where they have to constantly prove themselves, right? So the next aspect is listening. This is very important for everybody. So do you know why women make great leaders? That's because they listen. That's because they take time to listen instead of reacting right away. So appreciate people's viewpoints, whether they're right or wrong, hear them out, and then make your decision. So give women leaders this chance that no one else gives. Listen before you make a decision or speak. And next, coming to sponsorship and mentorship. So I have done a surface level scratching in my previous section. So let us dive a little bit deeper here. So like I said, all successful leaders, they need a network of champions, including mentors and sponsors. So too few women are reaching the top of their organizations. And a big reason is that they're not getting higher stake assignments, you know, which is like very important for you to be at a C-suite. Often this is because of lack of, powerful sponsors demanding and ensuring that they get these stepping stone jobs. So it would be really good and helpful if someone can vouch for you, right? Like, okay, this woman is amazing at this. You should give her this opportunity. She'll give you result. If someone influential, a sponsor, can vouch for you, that's really helpful for women who are wanting to like set their foot into the C-suite. So by the time they reach mid-career, their mid-career, most leaders should be able to name at least handful of advisors, bosses, coaches, colleagues, friends who have helped them build confidence and develop, needed skills, right? So these advisors may be mentors or sponsors. While both mentors and sponsors, they guide professional development, they are a little different. So a mentor can be an experienced person at any level who can provide guidance for your career choices and decisions, while a sponsor is a senior leader in an organization who can use influence to help someone obtain high visible assignments, right? So without access to the people who can set you up for these experiences that you need, your career progress is likely to stall, and this will lead to like short-term frustration and long-term consequences. So cut all this. Just get a sponsor or mentor. And as a business owner, how can you help your women leaders? There are so many free online resources that you can utilize that help aspiring women leaders, potential mentors and sponsors and HR executives. So one of such free resources is LinkedIn. So recently I have got in touch with so many amazing, wonderful women. So it is important that you connect with people out there, collaborate, and find someone who is, ready to guide you, sponsor you, help you. And coming to the last aspect of this section is acting against harassment. So, did you know that sexual harassment is a workplace hazard that raises costs for women to pursue leadership ambitions, and it in turn reinforces gender gaps in income, status, and voice. So, let me tell you in a simple way. So, research recently has highlighted that women's advancement, may involve a paradox of power. Rather than reducing exposure to sexual harassment, power in workplace seems to put women at greater risk. So, which is why we need stricter policies and procedures against any kind of workplace harassment. So, if you want to make your workplace more inclusive for women leaders, this is one thing that you have to have in place, right? Okay. So, I think I have covered pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. So, I'm ready to take your questions, guys. Yeah. So you can type in your questions in the chat.
So while we receive some questions from them, I have a question, Rohia. Um, how do I identify if I have reached my potential?
Okay. So I really like that question. So for us women leaders, we have we have certain goals that we have for ourselves, like short-term goals. We set these goals, and there's a sense of fulfillment that we do not understand, like at which point we get. So at least, like if I take my own example, so for me it is always about making a tangible impact on people, and people growing along with me as a leader. So I think for many women it's about this tangible impact that they make on people, and how people are growing along with them. So when you reach your leadership potential, you can see people growing along with you, and will have this you will have this way of identifying that they are also on their way of becoming something. So you have helped them in a way. So when people are growing along with you, I think that's when you have reached your potential. And there is no particular full stop for this. You can always keep aspiring and growing as a leader as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Neha is asking how to identify or collaborate with the right sponsor.
Okay. Okay, Neha. So this is quite tricky. So it is very important that you find a collaborator who has a similar vision of who has same vision like you, like what you want to do in life. So like I said, you have to be first clear about what you want to do in your career, and based on that, find someone who is really influential in that area of your industry or particular aspect. And I guess collaborate with them. Like there are many platforms out there to identify. I guess you need to put yourself out there and talk to many people. That's how it will come with practice. You just have to put yourself out there, speak to as many as people as possible, and you will find this connect. Yeah. So that's how you do it. At least for me, that's how it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Aishwarya wants to know, how do we handle our bosses tactfully if they're being subtly sexist? Maybe you can share a few examples.
Okay. Okay. So there are a lot of examples for people who like, I mean, subtle sexism in at workplace. So, okay. So, for starters, just do not entertain them, or like, that's not an option in many cases. But it is important for us to let them know that we are uncomfortable because of this. um, because most of people, they tell, like, if you point out to something that, hey, this made me uncomfortable, they tend to tell you that, hey, that was just for fun, and I don't know, like, who is getting fun out of it, because it did not make me laugh, right? So one example of this is, like, I mean, it's not subtle sexism. Yeah, okay, so recently I was speaking with someone at my workplace, and they were like, oh, Rohia, so you've been here, you are all over the internet, like, you're doing this, you're doing that. So that did not, like, acknowledge my accomplishments, or that did not, like, recognize me for my accomplishment, but there was a sense of taunt in that voice, like, oh, you're doing this. So it was subtle sexism. But, like, if you tell this to someone, they'll be like, oh, she's being all, you know feminist, the F word. They really hate this. Yeah, so I think handling the best way to handle subtle sexism is by telling them, speaking up, and telling them, like, this is making me uncomfortable. So there is no right time to tell this. Like, if you're feeling it right, then just tell it, even if it's your boss. Yeah.
Thank you. There's another question. Is leadership an inborn talent or can it be acquired?
Okay. So I believe that, leadership, you need to have a little acumen of leadership. That's, if it interests you, you can acquire it. If you want to be a leader, you can learn from leaders around you, you can learn from sponsors, mentors around you. So I guess, yeah. So if you know where you want to go, if you know that you want to be a leader, you can work towards it. You can, upgrade your skills. You can understand, like, where you lack. You can ask for feedback frequently, and you can upskill yourself and become a leader.
Thank you, Rohia. Um, Udayashri says there are executive coaching in boom to come back, but same time competition and women is same. How do companies women in which skill set?
Okay. Yeah, that's the competition between men is, like, pretty same even after, like, women, after the executive coaching thing. I guess that depends basically on, like, what role these women are looking to come back into, and, and this. So once you leave, it's pretty hard to come back and, gain credibility, and, understand, you know all your colleagues have moved on, everything has, like, changed, and your skills are not, ready. I mean, they are, like, outdated. So more than what companies should do, it is more of, like, what we should do for ourselves. So as companies, it is important that, like, you give them an opportunity. I mean, for women who come back after a time, you give them an opportunity. You give them, like, a certain period to, like, adjust to, like, this new kind of this one, after, like, the break that they have taken. So I think about the skill set, that totally depends on the role they're looking for, and totally depends on, like, what kind of managers they have. So yeah, I hope I have answered it with my sort of experience, Daishri. Okay.
Nahid is saying, if you have a lot of different skills, how do you display that on your resume and encourage the opportunities?
Okay. Having different skills is a really good thing, by the way. But you have to understand, like, which skill is giving you more visibility, like which skill is makes you stand out. So you have to prioritize your skills, and you have to put it that way on your resume, that like this is the skill that you have and this is what you have done with your skill. And even though you have different skills, I think the key is to prioritize and put them on the resume. Yeah.
Um, there's a person who sent me a question. I have just completed my graduation course and would like to know would like to know what are some easy ways to become a leader and have a successful career.
Okay. So this is really amazing that this person here is has finished their graduation and they know right away they want to be a leader. Because for me, to understand what I want to do in my life, it took a long time. But really, like, congratulations on that you know what you want to be. Uh, but for you to be a leader, first you have to understand like in which leadership can be different for different people, like I said. So you have to understand and recognize what is your key leadership skill, and you have to work on that. And you will find opportunities anyway, going on, I mean, going through the career ladder, like you will understand what is more expected of you. So you're just a graduate, you still have like a whole world out there. So I guess, like, understand your key leadership skill, key trait that you have that you can use to help people around you grow. Yeah, so I think that should help.
Thank you. Um, Another question is, having had a career break for 6 years now with a prior experience in marketing for 8 years, I would like to know how to upskill myself to be at par with my peers, and what are my chances of reaching leadership levels, and how do I make them better?
Okay. Okay, so it's amazing that you want to come back to workforce after this break, but like we all know, it's not that easy. And like, if you want to be a leader, leaders actually need like people skills, organizational skills, and the ability to ask really good questions when they don't have all the answers, right? So great leaders, they are able to see trends that others cannot, and to see the big picture, and to ask pointed questions. So that is one thing you should do, even if you have taken your like break. And I would like tell you that there is like, it's really good that you are coming back to the workforce, because there is no precise right moment to take that chance and come back. And for you to upgrade your skills, I think there are like so many resources out there. There's Udemy. There are like actually like there's jobs for her. Of course, they'll help you upskill, right? Yeah. So I hope like that kind of answered the question.
Rohia, Ujwala's got a really good question. What changes do you see when it comes to men working under a woman leader today versus 10 years ago?
Okay. Okay, that's a very interesting question. So I guess let me tell you one thing. So when most of my male colleagues, they tend to tell me that, like, hey, you're being very aggressive about being a woman, um, and you push this women's agenda a lot. But let me tell you what, I am really aggressive about being a woman. And yeah, we all should be. And I think in like the coming years, it's going to be like that. So it's taken us so long to get here. I think like in 10 years, things are going to be better. Like, people are recognizing how it is important to have like women at the front and, leading the male workforce. So I think, yeah, they are going to go back and like let us have limelight for some time. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Rohia. There's, I think, one more question. Um, As a woman in automobile industry for over 10 years, I look forward to being a leader. Please suggest the steps I need to take to do so.
Okay. So one leadership lesson that I would tell that I have learned is, no matter at what level of leadership you are, so if you make a mistake, it is important for you to own up, apologize, and move on, and appreciate feedback and think what you can do with it. And if you're not making mistakes, you might not be doing something interesting, right? So, other than that, I think you need people skill, organization skill. I think women do have all of it in them, and you have been a leader already for 10 years. So I think, I mean, there's a lot for me to learn from you. So to see the bigger picture, I mean, like I said, like you have to ask like the right questions, even if you don't have answers to all of them. Like just be out there, stand up for yourself, and surround yourself with good people. Cultivate relationships with people you respect and admire. Finding a commonality, support network is also key to success in leadership when it comes to it. Yeah. I hope I have answered that too.
Yeah, those are the questions that I think have come across for today. So yeah, I don't see any more questions. Um, is there anything else that you would like to address or add? Or shall we?
Okay. So like no, like basically like one small thing that I would like to add is that usually what we think is that the journey in leadership is a linear upward straight curve, and like we are going to just excel, but no, it's not going to be like that. There are going to be so many ups and downs, and patience is a virtue. And taking small steps, small consistent steps over a time, uh, this can really help for anybody, like at any point of their careers. I just wanted to add that part. That's nothing much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Rohia. This has been a very insightful session, and I'm sure we've all learned a lot about becoming leaders in today's world. And I thank everyone for joining in, and definitely hope to see you all in the next masterclass. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much, guys. You've been a wonderful audience. Thank you. Thank you, Jobs, for her. Thank you.